We live full-time in Osaka, Japan, but legally, we're still Florida residents. How do we do it? Today we're going to talk about the system that makes that possible. Welcome to Unretired in Japan, where we're documenting what life after early retirement really looks like. Let's go. When we decided to retire early and move to Japan, I assumed the hard part would be getting here. We spent months planning our visa, selling our house, downsizing our belongings, and figuring out what life on the other side of the world might look like. What I didn't expect was how much of our life would still depend on having an address back in the United States. Even after you've moved overseas, life doesn't simply disconnect from home. Your bank still needs to know where you live. Your brokerage account does too. So do your insurance companies, your credit cards, and most importantly, the IRS. Your driver's license, voter registration, and eventually even Social Security all expect you to have a permanent address in the United States. That's when I learned a term I'd never paid much attention to before: legal domicile. Put simply, it's the state you continue to call your permanent legal home, even if you're physically living somewhere else. For us, understanding that concept answered one question, but immediately raised another. Once we understood what a legal domicile was, the next challenge was figuring out how to maintain that home while living thousands of miles away in Japan or across the world. For some people, moving overseas is an opportunity to establish residency in a different state before they leave. We didn't need to do that because Florida already checked every box for us. We had lived there for years. Our driver's licenses were issued there. We were already registered to vote there. Our bank accounts, brokerage accounts, insurance policies, and tax records all reflected Florida as our home. Just as important, Florida doesn't have a state income tax, so there was no financial advantage to moving our domicile somewhere else. One thing that's important to understand is that where you live and where you're legally domiciled are not necessarily the same thing. We live in Osaka, Japan. That's where we rent an apartment, buy groceries, ride the subway, and spend our everyday lives. But our legal domicile, the place the United States recognizes as our permanent home, remains Florida. Whether we're in Japan for 2 years, or in Greece for 2 years, or somewhere else after that, our legal home stays the same. The key is consistency. Every major institution should point to the same address. If your driver's license says one thing, your voter registration says another, and your bank has a third address on file, you're creating unnecessary complications. We wanted every important record to tell the same story. One thing to understand during this process is that your legal domicile and your mailing address aren't necessarily the same thing. Ours aren't. And understanding that distinction made the entire system much easier to understand. The organization we chose to help us do just that is called Escapees. It was founded in 1978 to serve the full-time RV community, but over the years it has grown to support anyone who lives a location-independent lifestyle. Today, its members include retirees, digital nomads, boaters, international travelers, and people who simply don't maintain a traditional permanent home. Most people know Escapees for its mail forwarding service, but that's only one part of what they do. They also offer residency programs that help members establish or maintain legal domicile in states like Florida, Texas, and South Dakota. Those programs are designed for people whose lifestyle don't revolve around owning or renting a permanent home. It's important to understand what that means. Escapees doesn't make someone a Florida resident simply because they sign up. You have to meet Florida's legal requirements and update the records that establish your domicile. What Escapees provides is the framework that allows you to maintain that domicile while living somewhere else. What often confuses people is that none of this determines where your mail is physically delivered. In our case, our legal home is Florida, but our mail is actually processed through Escapees Mail Center in Texas. Those aren't competing systems. They're two separate services working together to solve two different problems. Now that our legal residency was taken care of, the next challenge was figuring out how to manage our mail from nearly 7,000 miles away. So, how exactly do you receive your mail when you live on the other side of the world? Before I looked into it, I had a pretty outdated idea of how mail forwarding worked. I imagined someone collecting our mail, stuffing it into a larger envelope every few weeks, and shipping it overseas. That might have worked years ago, but today's systems are much more flexible. In our case, every piece of mail is sent to Escapee's Mail Processing Center in Texas. As each envelope arrives, it appears in our online account. From there, we decide exactly what happens next. We can have an envelope opened and scanned so we can read it immediately, or request that the original be forwarded to Japan. We can recycle junk mail, securely shred sensitive documents, or have packages held and shipped whenever we're ready. What surprised me most was how little of our mail actually needs to leave Texas. Most of what arrives is advertising, credit card offers, catalogs, and other junk mail. Those items are simply recycled. The things that actually matter, tax documents, replacement credit cards, legal paperwork, or the occasional package, can be forwarded to wherever we happen to be living. This completely changed the way I think about having a mailbox. Instead of wondering what's piling up back in the United States, I can check our mail over breakfast in Osaka, decide what needs my attention, and move on with the rest of my day. Our mailbox hasn't disappeared, it just became digital. If we were starting over today, we'd follow almost the exact same process. The first step would be joining Escapees and deciding which state we wanted to use as our legal domicile. Escapees currently supports domicile programs in Florida, Texas, and South Dakota, each with its own residency requirements and advantages. Once you've selected your state, Escapees provides a detailed step-by-step guide explaining exactly what you need to do. One of the first things we needed to do was obtain our Florida driver's licenses through the Florida DMV using the documentation required by the state, also provided by Escapees. So we actually changed our Florida address from where we physically had a home to another address in Florida given to us by Escapees. We'd also register to vote, update any vehicle registrations if applicable, and begin changing our important financial and legal records so that they consistently reflected Florida again as our legal home at our new address. The goal is to build a consistent record showing that Florida is your permanent domicile. The mail service is a separate process. To activate mail forwarding, we first opened an Escapees mail service account and completed USPS Form 1583 from the U.S. Postal Service. That's the Postal Service authorization to legally allow a commercial mail receiving agency like Escapees to receive and handle your mail on your behalf. Without that form, they can't open, scan, forward, or otherwise manage your mail. USPS also requires identity verification as part of that process. Once the account was active, we submitted a USPS change of address, so mail addressed to our former home would begin forwarding to our Escapees mailing address in Texas. From that point on, we also contacted our banks, brokerage firms, credit card companies, insurance companies, and any other organizations that regularly mailed us important documents, asking them to update our mailing address directly. Relying on USPS forwarding alone is only a temporary solution, so it's important to update each institution individually. After everything was updated, the system largely took care of itself. Florida remained our legal home, Texas became our mail processing center, Japan became where we actually lived. Once those three pieces were in place, living overseas became much simpler because every part of the system had a clearly defined job. If you found this video helpful, we'd really appreciate it if you'd give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing to the channel. Every like, comment, and subscription helps us reach more people who are thinking about early retirement, slow travel, or building a life overseas. Until then, thanks for watching, and we remain unretired in Japan.